All right, moving on the Get Ready for the Future show, answering your questions. And if you have some, you can call or text them to us at 501-381-5228. You can leave a voicemail if you call, or you can just text us and maybe hear your question answered on the air. Just like this one from Austin. Austin from Little Rock says, everyone says I should have a budget. Well, we need some ominous music right there. But my income is high enough to cover my living expenses with leftover cushion. I'm saving 10% and maxing out my match. So do I really need a budget? That's a great question, because I do think you can free flow through life and be just fine. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a problem if you've got margin in your life and you're never really worried about overspending. But let's kind of break that down and talk about what you might be leaving yourself vulnerable for.
I do want to point out a key word that you just said, and that is margin, because I guarantee you there are other people besides Austin from Little Rock who are listening to this and going, I don't have a budget either. I think they're telling me this is okay, but they don't have margin in their lives.
Yeah.
So Austin is living without a budget, and he's saving 10%, and he's maxing out his match. So he's checking some very significant, important boxes and doing okay with this. I will say, Austin, you are not alone in not having a budget. There's an article from Credit Donkey that says that 32% of U.S. households prepare a monthly budget. And what that means is 68% don't. And so you're not alone in this. And frankly, Scott, I was kind of surprised that it's basically a third of them who do. I would have thought that would have been much lower.
Well, it doesn't say they stick to it.
Yeah, that's true. It's just that they prepare it
exactly.
like once.
Yes.
Austin, I'm gonna be real transparent here about the Walker household. We have gone through lots of different phases of life. My daughter actually just mentioned this one to my son recently, because he's at about the same stage of life as the part of my life that she was talking about, and she was telling him, we've still got that notebook from when Mama was in college, and you can tell how much she spent on milk and on grapes and everything, because I didn't just have a grocery budget. Like, I wrote down every single thing that I bought. I'll say that's OCD, and I didn't do it for a long time. But that was way pre-financial advisor. I had no knowledge at that point in my life that I would ever even be in this industry. I was just trying to understand the flow of money. I was very young. I was a late teenager in college and trying to figure out life. And so I did it for a period of time to really get a grasp on what I was doing. For a long time, we did cash envelopes, the whole Dave Ramsey cash deal. I stopped doing that when my mom was behind me in Walmart one day, and Scott, she looked at me and she looked at the buggy of groceries and she looked at the cash that was going to be used for that buggy of groceries, and she said, people can see that, put it away. Like, she was pretty sure I was going to get killed for the grocery money, which, it's 2023. So that was probably my mom's wisdom then. So we got to the point where we didn't do physical envelopes, but we still tracked what we were spending. And I will say at this point, there is an ebb and flow to that. We have a looser budget than what we used to have, and that's okay. But we do still have parameters on that. And I think it's important, Austin, to look at whether there are opportunities that you might want to do, you might want to partake in that you're not doing right now. Potentially, you could accelerate your retirement timeline if you wanted to really focus on adding more to retirement. So there's a lot of opportunity without having to be restrictive. And I think that's the key in budgeting the right way. Maybe you just need to look at it periodically and see where you are, and not really have to be tied to a budget per se.
I think that's where I am with this. It's not necessary. The budget really indicates the month to month, the day to day.
Yeah.
And maybe he's good on that. But what creating a budget can do for your future is really the differentiator for me, because and budgeting, quite frankly, is so easy today. You don't have to do that handwritten, how much you spent on grapes. You can plug all these things into your credit card. If you have a credit card, they probably do it for you. If you have a lot of budgeting tools online, and what you can do once you set that up is you can see, where am I spending all of this money?
I have a funny story on that, though. So one of the first times that we started doing this, our church has attached to it a little cafe. And I don't hardly ever buy anything at the cafe, but the bank had to determine what category to put our giving in. And it made our giving look like we were spending that much at a restaurant. And so I see the restaurant percentage, and I'm like, holy cow, did my husband take out, like, the whole neighborhood? What is this? It was giving. But they've gotten better at, how they read things like that over the years. Yeah. So I do like the electronic opportunities to utilize what's out there. It really can make this a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and I think when you do that, you can say, okay, I'm really, I've got a closet full of clothes. I don't really need to be spending X amount like I've been spending on average on clothing. Maybe I can back off of that because you may end up throwing a lot of these things you buy away, right? I think that's where the analysis for budgeting can really help. And then you can divert, as Janet has already alluded to, more towards your retirement or even more towards intermittent saving, or intermediate saving, I should say. I was almost thinking intermittent fasting there. Intermediate saving, like intermediate goals, like things you may want to go on a big vacation and you don't have to wonder where that money's going to come from. You can bolster your emergency savings. There's a lot of other places you can divert funds to once you've analyzed what you're actually spending money on. And then the one final thing I would say about too is if you are a high income earner right now, then you're likely going to want to live on more retirement income than the average retiree. Think about that. So your need to save more for retirement is there.
But your standard of living has likely increased over the years as your income has increased, and hopefully you've gotten more cushion in there as well. But Scott, that is a very valid point, that somebody who makes $45,000 a year compared to somebody who makes $400,000 a year, their retirement income goals are very different. So it is important to keep that in mind.
All right. Well, thanks for the question, Austin. And if you have a question, again, call or text them to the number 501-381-5228, 501-381-5228, or as Hope did, you can ask us a question on YouTube. We'd be glad to see it there. Any way you can get the question to us and we see it, we'd be glad to use it on the air if we have the opportunity.